Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's KB5MIQ Big Boy. Thought we'd do a little back-to-back video and go back to a subject that I always like talking about, and trying to keep the hobby promoted the best we can. I know the guys and I talk on our nightly roundtable about different things that we see people asking on social media, and trying to get new hams interested in the lower bands. So look back at my channel and videos and how many views certain videos have got. And one of my more popular videos was an earlier video I talked about how to get on 10 meters. So I'm going to kind of expand on that a little bit today. Still see a lot of guys asking about the financial, how much it's going to cost. Hey, Ham Radio Cat. Aaron, old buddy, number one fan, Ham Radio Cat showed up. Hope all y'all feeling better there at your house today. All right. 10 meters, technician class ham has access to phone privileges on 10 meters, 28.3 to 28.5. We've talked about that before. And with this upcoming sunspot cycle, you're really missing a lot of fun if you don't figure out a way to get something on there. Now, last year of COVID shutdowns, year and a half, and shut down Hamfest and things like that, and looking for used gear. Thing that you're going to have to minimally have to get on 10 meters is a radio, number one. Whether it's a 10-meter single band radio or it's a full up amateur HF rig that covers all the bands that you're just going to use on 10 meters. Anything there will work. Um, Many avenues you can look at to try to find a radio. I know certain areas now, as the sidewalk sales and swap meets are starting to start back up. Earlier video, I mentioned Maine Trading Company. They've had two so far. They're going to do three this spring. The last one's coming up on the second Saturday in May. And if you're in the Northeast Texas area, Paris, Texas, and you can make it, you can probably find some good stuff there. I've seen several HF rigs there reasonably priced. Um, New radios, depend on your budget, things like that. You're going to have a power supply. You're going to have a type of antenna. Now, here's where it's really easy, in my opinion, hey, Cam Radio Cat, to get on 10 meters. The dipole is only a little over 16 feet long. And you can use your dipole calculator that you should have learned in your licensing to figure out whatever frequency you're going to be on and cut a dipole for that. It should cover all the phone portion of the novice tech phone portion of the band. You shouldn't have any problem with that. How to get an antenna up. Many options. If you live in a house that's got a high attic or a two-story house, got attic access, you're only putting a 16-foot dipole, get up there and hang it straight from the rafters. And by putting it in an attic, you could actually hang it in a flat configuration versus the inverted V configuration. And somebody correct me if I'm wrong, HKV and I talked about that, and he's always preferred to hang a dipole flat versus inverted V because it changes the takeoff angle on it. You might get a little better performance out of it. And 10 meters doesn't have to be that high. Antenna height helps, but it doesn't have to be that high. Now, you're going to have some coax. If you put an antenna outside, I'm going to give y'all some pricing on some suggestions here in a minute. If you can live in an area with some trees, they got these antenna launcher, string launchers. In fact, they sell them at ham swap meets. I seen one at Paris the other day. Compressed air cannon like a potato gun that you can launch something up in the air with a string on it to pull a rope up to pull an antenna up. Or throw a rock, sling it up in the air. I've done that before. I tied a piece of string, long string, to a brick, throwed it up in a tree and worked it down, and then pulled an antenna up in a tree with it several years ago. In fact, I did that before I got my ticket. HKV loaned me an old Hallicrafters receiver, and I strung me a long wire receiving antenna up doing that. So many ways you can do this. If you want something directional up, MFJ's got a very good 2-element Moxon 10-meter beam. It'll handle a kilowatt, $99. That's what I've got up. Had real good signal reports with it. So let's do a little talk about some specific equipment that you might consider. These are just suggestions. I'm not telling anybody this is what you got to do. But for instance, the MFJ 1890 10-meter Moxon antenna is $99.95 on their website. You're going to need a power supply. Now, if you're depending on the type of radio you're running, if you're running a 10-meter mobile, most of those are only 25-watt radios. Get you a battery. And if you got a battery charger, hook a battery charger to it. I know a friend of mine done that for several years with an old Radio Shack 10-meter mobile. Worked fine. If you want a power supply, my suggestion, if you can possibly afford it, is buy the biggest power supply you can have so you'll have room to grow as you get further into the hobby. Main Trading Company, MTC in Paris, has got an MFJ 35 amp Mighty Light switching power supply, $140. Something to think about. Now, if you really want to do the elevated pole Yagi type antenna, Main Trading is still, I'm using them as a reference here, but they're a good company to deal with, has a RON 50-foot telescoping mast. Now, it's only store pickup. They won't ship it to you. And if you try to get one shipped off Amazon, they're like 3 times as high. But they got a RON 50-foot, which is what I use because I bought mine from them, $169.95 telescoping mast. If you want to use the Yagi and you want to go full rotator and everything with it, all you need is a light duty TV rotator. And they sell a RCA light duty TV rotator, $129. Probably another $60 for rotor cable. You're going to need some coax. If you're not going to run an amp, and a lot of guys don't like this, I've run it for years. RG8X, used to call it RG8X mini phone. They got a 100-foot roll of it already made up. PL259 on both ends, $48, $48.99. Talking about radios. That's the sky's the limit here. Whatever you can possibly afford. Okay, my picture didn't come out too good. Walcott Radio has the new version of the Ranger 2950, which is a 25-watt AM/FM sideband CW 10-meter mobile radio. I had one. Matter of fact, I've had 2 of them, and they're good little radios. This one I think is $349, but it's just a straight 10-meter mobile. This is rotor cable you'll need. That's $65 for rotor cable for 100 foot. You know, sky is the limit. Now, the hobby has got some expense in it. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. But you can get in it as in depth as you want to. And 10 meters is a good one to get into. Hustler sells a 4BTV, 5BTV vertical antennas. I've got a 5BTV. It works fine on 10. I prefer an elevated antenna if I possibly can. And bands open good. Make you a dipole. A simple dipole antenna. I've worked Japan off a dipole on that 25-watt radio years ago. The band opened good. But don't let that deter you on anything. 10-meter band, when it's opening, you'll make a bunch of contacts, especially Central, South America. I've worked Europe on 10 meters. A lot of island contacts. A lot of stateside stuff. Most of my stateside contacts has been on 10 meters. So you're missing out by limiting yourself strictly to the VHF, UHF bands in the world above 30 megahertz. Now, it's great to use it. I got a 2-meter in my truck, a couple of talkies here. In fact, W5DLX and myself was on a 2-meter simplex last night with a guy helping him check an antenna out. So, you know, it's good to get all of it, like we said, before in these videos, there's so many different aspects of this hobby. You can pick and choose where you want to be at in it and spend the amount of money you want to get into it with. My suggestion, if you go with a used radio, or even if you can afford a new HF rig, go ahead and buy a multi-band HF rig. That way, and then go to work on that general class license, and you can work other bands with it. Now, if you decide you want to go with some kind of multi-band antenna, elevated, a lot of people run them down saying they're a failed experiment for a 20-meter doublet or something like that, but I used a G5RV for years on every band. I had a tuner on my radio. You need a tuner with it. But I made a lot of contacts with a G5RV. In fact, I think the first one I had was made by Van Gordon. I really think it was a better antenna than the last one I had. For some reason, I just never was satisfied with the last one, which was an MFJ. And I like MFJ stuff. I just didn't think that G5RV performed as well as the Van Gordon one did. And the Van Gordon one reminded me more of what I'd always been told the G5RV was made of. It had 35 foot of 300 ohm twin lead. Actually, it's what they used on it. May not make a bit of difference, and any expert feel free to correct me. The MFJ is using 450 ohm ladder line. May not make a bit of difference. The same length of wire as the 300 ohm twin lead, but I just felt like it never did. I got the same performance out of it. But they work great. You know, put a G5RV up. DX Engineering has got several multi-band dipole antennas that are reasonable to get, or build one. Look at one of my earlier videos on here. You can build a dipole out of anything. Just wire. You need some insulators on the end and an insulator in the center that you could separate the center conductor and the braid, where you can hook one to one leg, one to the other, and keep them isolated, tape it up, and hang it in the air. I've actually heard of people literally taking a center conductor, tying it to the wire on one leg, the braid, tying it to the wire on the other leg, and taping the crap out of it, and just hanging it like that. Mine, I've got a piece of plexiglass, say a 2x2 piece of plexiglass, with 2 screws in it and a hole to hang it with, and I put one leg on one screw, one leg on the other, and tape it up. That's what my 17-meter dipole's up right now, made just like that, and my 160, and they work fine. So, study your antenna building. Do some research on used equipment. If you got questions about used equipment, go to eham.net and look at their review section. And they review every piece of ham equipment I think that's ever been made, from stuff that's out of production to stuff that's in production now. And you can get some good information right there about the type of equipment you might need. Go to swap meets. If you don't know anything, if you're leery about the equipment, just go up there and look at it. Find another ham to go with you. Maybe he can help you make some selections on equipment. My rule of thumb, buying used electronics at a swap meet, to me, it all depends on how the table's set up, how junky the equipment looks, and how the person trying to sell it represents themselves. If it looks like it's just been piled in the back of a vehicle and drug around every swap meet to swap meet, I'm probably not going to buy it. If it looks like it's been handled carefully and set up neatly, and somebody trying to sell it and can answer some good questions about it, I'd probably consider buying it. In fact, the first one at MTC, I almost bought an old Kenwood TS830S. Old boy had one there, clean as a pin. He told me what little bit he thought was wrong with it. I just didn't really have the extra cash on me at the time. I've always been fascinated with them radios, and I kind of wish now I'd have bought it. I didn't, but maybe I'll find another one later. The main thing is figure out a way to get on 10. Especially get you started on some HF voice. And once you get started on that, get that general class license, and then move on to some other bands. Plenty of ways to make contacts on HF where you're not just sitting there on repeaters. I know it sounds like I'm knocking repeaters. I'm really not. But I carry one radio with me all the time. And I talk to people on local VHF, UHF stuff. But I've got about a 300-mile drive I make once a month. And I go through like 7 towns that I've got repeaters programmed into. I've made one contact in the last 3 trips going out there. Nobody is monitoring the repeaters. To me, that I would get bored. If I was limiting myself to VHF, UHF only, I would get really bored with the hobby really quick. That's all we're trying to do. We don't want to see you get bored with the hobby. We want to see you enjoy it and get a chance, get on 10 to start with, and you'll make some contacts. All right, well, I know I sound like a broken record on that, but like I said, 10 Meters always been my favorite band. Appreciate everybody who subscribed to the channel. We hit 238 subscribers. Like I said, that 10 meter video I mentioned had over 1,400 views. I was glad to see that. W5DLX, W5HKV, and myself, we try to come up with these ideas, trying to keep supporting the hobby the best we can. Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Friday nights, we are usually on 28,450 or somewhere close. 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time till probably 8:15 to 8:30, depending on what we have to talk about. And if anybody checks in with us. If you're in Paris, Texas, check out Main Trading Company. Check them out online. They got a website and they'll ship. Got some good stuff there. Second Saturday in May is when they're going to have the last sidewalk sale. If you can get down to this area, you'll enjoy it, I promise you. Check out social media pages, Ham Radio Flea Market Trading Posts, Amateur Radio Elmer's, Ham Radio, Amateur Radio for Newbies, all good pages to check out. I appreciate everybody who likes to listen to me. We're just trying to support the hobby any way we can. This is KB5MIQ Big Boy 73.